Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to this week's episode of Nature Obscura, a podcast where nature and the supernatural collide. I'm Marissa.
And I'm Grace. Each week, we share spooky happenings from the great outdoors, from cryptids to curses, ghosts to witches, and everything in between.
Now, while we love a haunted house or a scary hospital story, that's not what we're here for. We're taking you around the globe to explore where nature and the supernatural intersect.
But before we do that, we're going to share some stories from this week that could perhaps be naturey or spooky, or maybe not, Maybe we just want to talk about our lives because we're cool.
And we're multifaceted, interesting human beings. Yay. All right, so grab your flashlight, listen closely, and grab some marshmallows because we have a lot of scary stories today. How has your week been?
It was really good. It's funny. I just want to jump back into what's scary and what's spooky. And as a parent, sleep training.
That sounds terrifying. What is that?
Yeah. So basically, sleep training is training your baby or kid to go to sleep independently so that you don't have to be holding them or be in the room with them. We've been switching around the evening routine where instead of a bottle and then directly to bed, we'll do a bottle, story time, and then we'll put her in her crib awake and then leave. And she has to figure it out.
How's that been going?
Honestly, it's really great. We've been doing it for a week and a half now. And yesterday and tonight, we put her in her crib and she went straight to sleep. No crying, no fussing. She got the hint. At first, it was rough. You leave. We did it where we left for 3 minutes and we'd come back, rub her back for 2 minutes, and then we'd leave for 5 minutes and then just keep doing that over and over. Sometimes 4 times, and it was really sad, but it's paying off because now we can just toss her in her crib and leave.
She's Miss Independent.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not going to last. I'm sure she's going to wake up any second now or start to regress. But yeah, that's what I've been doing pretty much all week, as well as the concert that you and I both went to the other day.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun seeing Jack White. How'd you like it?
Yeah, I don't actually listen to his music, but my husband is really into it. And from not really knowing any music, I had a really good time.
That's cool. I have to ask, I have to compare. Better or worse than the Strokes, or the same or different?
I thought it was better, but only because I knew how much James was into it and he was really into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. How'd you like it?
I really liked it. Yeah, it was a good show. For myself for this week, I somehow feel I do have something. Have you heard of Jimothy?
Yes. Recently, a coworker of mine told me about Jimothy.
So I don't know much about him. And for those that don't know, it is a raccoon with short spine syndrome, which is a rare congenital condition that causes an shortened spine and an awkward hunched body shape.
Yeah, dogs can have it too.
Yeah, I guess there's a German Shepherd that has it, but basically he looks really silly. He looks like he could be a cryptid. And probably what many cryptids truly are, just real animals with genetic defects or abnormalities.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's been fun kind of reading about that.
I know it. I worry about him though, because he can't have a normal lifespan.
Well, I know me and my brain, I'm just oh, I hope that it's I hope there's not a chronic pain issue or that sort of thing. It really doesn't seem comfortable.
I wonder how his digestion is because his intestines must be shortened or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder. He was so small and clumsy as a baby, but his mother and siblings were always so patient and caring, keeping him from falling and sometimes just carrying him.
Yeah. I love that he's on shirts and just anything, and he's this big sensation right now. Just the name Jimothy is hilarious.
It is. Update, he was actually born this spring. So, in fact, I feel like he's going to die soon, and now we're all gonna get depressed.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Okay, is Jimothy in pain? While we don't know how short spine syndrome affects raccoons, some dogs experience this, and it's believed to experience little to no discomfort and live active, happy lives.
Happy.
Okay.
Do
Okay.
we know that he's happy?
I'm gonna say that he's happy, and at least when people are gonna say maybe they'll feed him. I don't know. I worry about the guy. But yeah, Jimothy has been all the rage. I've been hearing tons about it um, at work, and that's kind of been my thing. I wanted to do some egg cleansing. That didn't happen. I somehow woke up yesterday completely feeling fine, not hungover, but I woke up today feeling hungover. It was like a 36-hour delay. And I didn't
That's
drink it all
weird.
yesterday. Like I didn't even drink that much.
Mhm.
Or I'm coming down sick. So we'll see.
Maybe.
But yeah, should we get into this week's episode is a little different. Instead of going to a specific location or talking about a specific thing, we decided to do a scary camp story themed episode. Perfect time of year for it. It's the end of July. And I never had the fortune of going to summer camp as a kid. Did you?
No, I always wanted to. I was always so jealous that I never got to, like my siblings did. And I would volunteer at summer camps with my grandma during the summer, and we would pick up trash and watch all of the other kids have fun.
Grace, that sounds awful. So not only did you not get to experience the joys of summer camp, you had to pick up their trash and just
Yeah.
watch the other children have fun?
Yeah, I was a Camp Wartburg frog. That's what they called us.
A camp what?
Wartburg?
Wartburg? Oh my gosh,
I
what an
know.
iconic name.
I have a little keychain on my keys. I'm a Camp Wartburg frog.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was all old ladies, and sometimes we got to plant
Oh,
flowers, though,
well,
so
that's
and clean
nice.
windows. Yeah,
I'm sure
God,
it's
that's
really
fun.
fun spending that time with your grandma,
I
but
mean, that was the best part, but
yeah.
forced labor. I'm a better person because of it, though.
Well, most of these stories actually, I don't think any of these ended up taking place over summer camp per se, but a lot are summer camping. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, this first story, and all of these were found on Reddit because what other place to find firsthand creepy encounters? So, this is from the paranormal Reddit. This is titled Creepy Camping Experience, and this was just posted 4 months ago. My husband and I are avid campers. Rain or shine, snow or ice, we go camping year round all across Ontario. I'm already side noting. I've always wanted to be those people.
Me too.
I love camping. I like going out and being outside. How often do I camp? Almost never.
I know. Same.
Anywho, jumping back in. A few years ago, we heard about a little campground a few hours north of where we live and decided to check it out over the Labor Day weekend and into the following week. So we get to the park. Not only is it beautiful, but as we suspected, it was quite empty. There were only a couple other families there on the first day we arrived. Unfortunately, the weather on the first night ended up not being the best, and after a night of rain, we saw the other campers packing up and leaving. We went for a walk and very quickly noticed we had the entire place to ourselves. Legit, it was empty aside from us. On what turned out to be our last night, the rain came back and was really heavy. We decided to stick it out and just hang around our site. As it was getting later, I couldn't help but get an eerie feeling, but brushed it off because it was dark, rainy, we were alone, and a thunderstorm was coming in. After dinner, we decided we'd head to bed early. We cleaned up our dishes, put away our food, and retired to our tent. By that time, the thunder was really loud and lightning had started. Despite all the weather, we somehow were able to fall asleep. I'm not sure at what time, but at some point I ended up waking up in the middle of the night. The thunder was dying down, but the lightning was so close and intense that every time it clashed, it would light up our sight, and I could see shadows of the trees, picnic table, etc. outside through the tent. I remember laying there for a few moments just watching and turning to my husband, who was sleeping beside me, completely unbothered. After a few moments, that eerie feeling came back and at an overwhelmingly intense rate. I started getting super spooked, but I realized I couldn't really move. As I was starting to internally panic, that was when not only did I hear, but I saw something moving around outside the tent. At first, I couldn't believe it, but as the lightning kept lighting the sight up, 10,000%, there was a large bipedal figure moving around outside our tent and on the site. I couldn't move. All I could do is watch as it crept closer and closer to our tent door. From what it looked like through the shadow was a humanoid figure, much taller than a person with a larger head. Terrified, I just watched as who or whatever this thing was started coming into our tent. But didn't it open the tent, rather just came through it. At that point, I must have blacked out due to fear because when I woke up, it was the morning and my husband was cooking food. To say I was freaked out was an understatement. I told my husband, and he kind of brushed it off pretty quickly, saying I most likely just had a bad dream. Now, I do get sleep paralysis, so I thought maybe, but I had never experienced it that vividly before. It was so incredibly real. Anyways, because I was extremely freaked out and couldn't shake that uneasy feeling, he started packing up and we decided to leave that day. A few months later, I randomly brought up this story to him. As I was explaining what I experienced, he then confessed to me that he had lied to me that morning. As per him, that night he had also woken up at some point and saw a person like figure creeping around outside too. Don't lie.
You know what, though? I think for me, I would want them to lie, but as long as they told me later. Like, if they just kept it a secret forever, I'd be really upset. I mean, I wouldn't
Lie
know
at
I'd be upset, but
first,
yeah. You should.
but within 48 hours, within a week, 2 months, or a few months, that's a little long, but I digress. He assumed he was just having a bad dream. He too felt uneasy in the morning, but he didn't want to say anything to me as he didn't want to freak me out. He told me when I then got up and I shared I saw it too, it validated to him he wasn't just dreaming. We've talked about it since then and have no idea what it was. Was there a person lurking around? Was it something paranormal? Did we just have some shared sleep paralysis episode? When I think back to the visual of this being, it almost seemed unearthly, maybe alien, especially how it seemed to just glide through our tent. But no idea, but thought I would share to hear others' thoughts or similar experiences. What are your thoughts, Grace?
I mean, I don't like to think that it's a person, but if we're talking, like, realistically, I feel like it was a person. But I hope not. But also, I do hope so.
Yeah, would you rather be a person or an alien? I honestly don't know. It's creepy enough because it was in the middle of a lightning storm, though, like a thunderstorm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, alien would be scarier, and the fact that, like, she kind of lost consciousness, that
Yeah,
kind of makes me think alien.
Reddit had a lot of thoughts, including someone mentioning that they must have been visited by a tall gray. And I guess it can be common to experience those guys during thunderstorms, type of alien. Others are saying, oh, obviously they were abducted and placed back into their tent again with a chunk of time missing to cover whatever actually happened. Craziness. I'm not sure what it could have been. I mean, I think camping in the middle of a storm is probably creepy enough on its own. And your brain can do some pretty crazy things.
But the fact that they both saw it, though, like, that's the weird part, and the husband was, like, so hesitant to tell her even.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty strange.
This story is called We Upset Something in the Woods. I was asked to share my experience on another post about unexplained things happening in the northern woods of Sweden. When I was around 10 years old, I spent the summers at my grandparents', who lived in the northern parts of Sweden. They had a cabin out in the woods next to a beautiful lake, a long way from the nearest town. We had electricity, but no running water, so it was very rural. Just behind the cabin, there were dark, thick woods, where an eerie feeling was present each time you ventured into them. Each year when I went to my grandparents', I did so with my cousin. We lived in a small cabin, separate from where my grandma and grandpa lived, so when we wanted to go to their cabin, we would have to walk around 30 meters. One summer, my grandpa took us on a long walk out into the woods. During this walk, he told us stories about strange things happening in the woods involving trolls and other mysterious beings. On this special occasion, he told us something which roughly translates from Swedish to little people, small human like creatures invisible to the naked eye, who lived in these woods. As we went along deeper into the woods, he told us that these little people sometimes crossed the roads where people walked, and when this happened, people wandering those roads would just freeze in place for no apparent reason until the little people had passed the road. My cousin, being a kid, proceeded to joke by suddenly stopping and proclaiming that he had come upon one of the little people trails, and he froze in place. I laughed, but strangely enough, my grandpa was not amused. He was adamant that you should not joke about little people while in those woods. Nothing happened for the rest of the day, and later that evening, me and my cousin went to our cabin to go to sleep. We got around 3 hours of sleep until we were suddenly awakened around 3 a.m. by commotion going on all around the cabin. The outside of the cabin's walls sounded like they were being scratched by a large bear, and small pebbles were raining down on the roof, and we heard scratching coming from underneath our beds. It was very loud and absolutely terrifying. It was like being completely surrounded by noise and chaos. We panicked, ran from our cabin, woke our grandparents, and spent the night in their cabin. The next day, Grandpa brought us back to the woods, where we threw candy into the trees and said we were sorry. Nothing more happened after that, and we never made fun of the local legends again. To this day, this is by far the most extreme experience I've ever had. The noise and how it seemed to come from every direction was insane.
That's creepy and fun. I love the idea of like different cultures and local legends and just kind of like little fairy people in a way.
Yeah, I like the idea that they weren't going to try to like hurt them. They just wanted to scare them. So they were
Yeah.
like, all right, we're just going to scratch at every little surface we can.
And they make up for it by giving them candy. Like that's really polite. Like they didn't have to like sacrifice the blood of their first child or anything. It's just like, yeah, give them candy and it's fine. At
Yeah.
first I was kind of thinking maybe the grandpa or grandparents had something to do with it, but if it was scratching from all around the cabin,
Yeah,
likely not.
it's the under the bed one for me. I don't like that.
That's creepy.
What would you have done in that situation? Would you have left the cabin?
100%.
I don't know if I could. I don't think I could leave.
Oh, I guess I would freeze in terror until as soon as it got light out, and then I would leave and not stay there again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here is a Arizona camping story. So this one is scary paranormal woods camping experience. Has anyone ever had something like this happen to them before? Not the most attention-grabbing titles, but did help me when I was searching. So
There you go.
I'm telling this story in hopes that someone might have an answer for me, or maybe someone else has stayed here before and has experienced the same things we have. My husband has always loved the woods and nature just as much as me. About 2 years ago, me, my husband, and our 3-year-old daughter moved to Arizona. We moved to Phoenix, and being only about 2 hours away from Flagstaff, I decided to take him camping. We ended up in Williams, a smaller town 30 minutes away from Flagstaff. We didn't find a spot to camp until about 9 o'clock at night. The spot we chose was pretty nice. It was right by Coleman Lake, which, weirdly, isn't a lake at all, just a big patch of grass. It's a little open field surrounded by trees, and the best part was we were a good ways away from any other campers. Have you ever heard of an area called a lake that's not a lake?
I
It's
mean,
like
is
an
it a
area that was dried
historic lake?
up. Maybe that was it. It's strange. They didn't
That is
specify.
strange.
At 3:28 a.m., I woke up. I don't know exactly what woke me, but I had a really weird feeling. That's when I heard it. From somewhere in the woods behind me, something was walking towards our tent. I told myself it was probably just a deer or an elk, since we could hear elk practically screaming most of the night, so I knew they were close by. But whatever it was stopped right behind our tent and didn't move. I was so scared I couldn't move. I couldn't wake up my husband, who had his gun with him, to tell him something was outside. But soon the sun came up, and that was the end of it. I went outside to check, but nothing was there. I told my husband, and he just brushed it off. You probably fell asleep at some point, and the deer walked off, is what he said. I have never heard an elk scream. Is it scary?
I have only in videos. Yeah, it's eerie and not what you would expect to come out of their mouth.
Creepy. The The next night went just the same as the first. Something walked up to the tent, stood there, then disappeared. It would be 2 months before we went camping again. Knowing that area best, we decided to stay in the same campsite as before, but this time, the parents came with us. At 3:29 a.m., I woke up to something walking towards our tent. I was prepared to wake up my husband this time when the thing stopped once again behind our tent. It started walking around the tent. It walked around the right side of the tent, stopped, picked something up, and began dragging whatever it was all the way to the front side of the tent. It almost sounded like it was dragging a large stick. The second it got to the door of our tent, I somehow was able to wake up my husband and tell him someone was standing in front of our tent. Luckily, he has always been a man of action, so the second I said that, he grabbed his gun and opened the tent, but nothing was there. He got a flashlight and walked around the area, but found nothing. The next morning, I asked my parents if they had heard anything. My father said no, but my mother said she thought she heard someone walking around outside, but assumed it was us. On the next night, I convinced my husband to stay up with me. We sat in the tent in silence. Around 3 a.m., we heard the loudest scream from an elk I had ever heard. Soon, it sounded like a whole herd of them came running past our campsite from behind us. Something must have scared them. Probably a mountain lion or something, my husband said. Then, from a ways behind our tent, something started walking towards us. I grabbed his arm and told him it's here. He grabbed his gun and jumped out of the tent the second it was behind us, but nothing was there. It took several months before I was willing to go back. I don't know how I was convinced, but I decided to give it a third try. What? Why?
There's no way.
That's crazy.
A third try.
So the first 2 nights were the same. So the first night they went, it was the same as usual. However, this time their husband had heard it all too. He got up, scanned the area, there was nothing. On the second night, apparently, is when things got a lot more scary. Sitting by the fire when everyone else was asleep, we talked about the previous night. My husband suggested we sleep outside by the fire this time. We decided to take shifts staying awake. Don't you have your baby with you? I'm not understanding why this is our mission right now.
This is reckless.
In one of my shifts, I fell asleep. I was slowly woken up by the sound of something passing by. Then it passed by again and again. It passed back and forth several times before realization hit me. I fell asleep. I sat up fast and looked around. It was pitch black and I couldn't see anything more than a foot or two away from me. A feeling of fear came over me that I can't even explain. Something was out there. I just couldn't see it. I woke up my husband and we quickly got the fire going again. Eventually, I was waking up to the sound of my husband whispering to me, hey, wake up, hey. I woke up thinking he probably needs my help with the fire, but when I looked over, he was still sleeping and the fire was out. I looked around and that same feeling of doom rushing over me. I got the fire started again. I stood up and walked to the edge of the firelight and looked out into the darkness. It was like the fire made a wall that separated us from whatever was out there, and it felt like whatever it wasn't friendly. Okay. And that was their last camping story out there. They went home, they told people about it. People were thinking they were making it up, and they finally didn't go back camping there again.
That was my next question. Like, did they go back? Like, at what point did you just stop going back?
I know. Well, at this time, if they did go back, I don't know. She didn't update Reddit.
No.
But that's so creepy. So this is a superstition I've had ever since I was a little kid. I'm better about it now. Like, I don't do it as much as I used to in the past few years, at least. But if I wake up anytime it's 3 whatever in the morning, I have to stay up until 4 a.m. or something bad will happen. Maybe that's mental illness. But yeah.
Has something bad ever happened if you went back to sleep?
No. But in all the horror movies, it's like every time something bad's happened, they look at the clock and it's 3 a.m. Like, it's the witch's hour, it's the devil's hour, it's the time of day when like the veils between the two are like thinnest, you know?
Yeah.
So it's always been a big thing for me, 3 a.m., at least when I was younger.
I also had a similar experience, and I don't remember if I told you about it, so just stop me if I already have. But when I was young, I would often sleep in my sister's room because, like, I was scared. But for, like, 2 weeks straight, I would go to sleep in my room, and I would just wake up in my sister's room, and I would look at the clock, and I can't remember anymore what time it was, but it was always, like, on the hour at, like, 2 a.m. or something that I would wake up and I wouldn't even I'd be at the foot of her bed, just sleeping like a little dog.
Oh my gosh. Did you
I know it.
sleepwalk
Yeah, I
when you were a
slept walk
kid?
a lot as a kid.
Crazy.
Crazy. This next story is called Got Lost in the Woods for 8+ hours as a Little Girl and Saw Something Unexplainable. I grew up in a densely forested rural area in central Virginia, and like most kids my age, 10 at the time of the story, I spent a lot of time playing in and around the woods. My best friend and I had found a creek one day while exploring different deer trails through the woods. This creek we happened on was a very rare find and the perfect spot for us to play. It was wide and deep enough to swim around in and had nice, soft, mossy banks on either side to rest on after we had tired ourselves out. The water was cool and clear, no copperheads and no mosquitoes because the water was constantly running. We were psyched. After a few hours of swimming, we had to walk back home for lunch, but made plans to pack lunch the next day so we could have a picnic on the creek banks and spend the whole day there. The next morning, we set out for the woods at around 1 p.m. We entered at the same spot we had the previous day and followed what we thought was the same deer trail. It was not. At the point where we should have found the creek, we walked into a small clearing that was covered in huge, thick ferns. We had definitely never walked past this before, so being both hungry and tired of walking, we decided to eat in the clearing. We laughed and we played around there for a while, spitting watermelon seeds at each other for our lunch. That all changed, however, as soon as we packed up and set back out to find the creek. As we walked on, the woods started to feel darker and colder. We got skittish, and I noticed my friend kept whipping her head around to look behind us. After about a half hour of walking, we came upon what looked like an entire overgrown bathroom. Sink, toilet, and bathtub, all just sitting arranged together and covered in ivy. It's pretty common to find weird shit like this in the middle of the woods, so we just walked on and made jokes to lighten the mood, calling it Bigfoot's bathroom.
That makes sense.
But is it common to find that in the woods, though?
I feel like I've definitely found at least a sink and a toilet and other random household appliances. Never all together like it's their own bathroom situation, but yeah, you'll find like dump sites and
You're right. I have seen a washing machine before.
yeah.
Not a full bathroom set, but maybe one day. After another hour of walking and not seeing anything we recognized, we started to panic. Instead of trying to reach the creek, we were now just trying to find our way back home or out of the woods at least. I told her we should follow the sun and eventually we would come up on a road or someone's property where we could find help. She insisted on another way and we began yelling at each other. I told her if she thought she was so right, she should just go her way and we would see who got out first. So we split up.
Never do that.
No, this is so bad, but something kids would totally do.
Definitely.
Not 10 minutes after splitting up, I began to hear someone walking maybe 100 feet behind me. Thinking it was my friend deciding to go my way after all, I slowed down so she could catch up to me. Instead, whatever it was matched my pace. I slow down, it slows down, I stop, it stops. This went on for hours. I picked up a big stick, swung it a few times to make sure it was sturdy, and trucked on. As it began to get dark, I came upon something that made my heart sink into my stomach. It was Bigfoot's bathroom. I had just walked in a huge circle for hours, despite being 100% sure I was following the setting sun west the entire time. Confused and frustrated, I sat down on a log and just screamed my little heart out while smacking my whoop-ass stick repeatedly into the ground. As I tried to collect myself, I heard the footsteps again walking up on me from behind. I called out my friend's name as loud as I could. No answer. Then, after a short pause, the steps began to run towards me. I jumped up and booked it fast as I could in the opposite direction. Now, this is the truly horrifying part, which I typically omit while telling people this story. As I was sprinting through the darkening woods, I began to hear what I thought were church bells. I looked up to see the darkest, deepest cloud I have ever seen in my life. In the middle, it was so black it was like looking into the night sky, and the dark gray around it seemed to be swirling. It gave me a horrible feeling to look at. What sickened me further is that I realized the sound of the bells was coming through the hole in the cloud. They were deafeningly loud. I mean really booming out of this thing. When I realized this, I stopped dead in my tracks. I felt a sense of absolute and overwhelming dread that has gone unmatched in all of my 24 years on this planet. Something in my head began screaming that if I did not run away from whatever the hell that cloud was, no one would ever see me again. I would be gone. I did not want to run towards the thing chasing behind me either, though, so I made a sharp right and I took off away from both of them. It was now completely dark, and I was running blind through the woods, smacking through branches, wheezing, and tripping every few feet until I smacked into something low and flew over it, hitting the ground so hard, all the air in my lungs was knocked out of me. As I lay there trying to recover, I realized I couldn't hear the bells anymore. Then my eyes adjusted more to the dark, and I realized what had just made me go ass over teeth was an old fence.
What a weird saying.
It's so funny because I'm reading this for the first time and I'm saying these things like ass over teeth. I'm like, what? I like it though.
That's fun.
Grabbing hold of it, I prayed it would lead me to the farm. And sure enough, it did. I walked up over a hill to the back of the farmhouse, explained what had happened, and the farmer graciously gave me a ride back home. I was covered head to toe in scrapes, oozing blood, and more exhausted than I had been in all of my life. But I was finally safe. It was past 9 p.m. when I finally walked through my front door. My friend had gotten back shortly after we split and figured I had as well, so I hadn't told anybody I was lost. And my family just figured I was still out after dark. They were shocked when I walked in, beat up and crying. Nobody had been looking for me at all. To this day, I wonder how long they would have waited to come find me if I hadn't been lucky enough to find the fence, and if it would have been too late.
I think that's the creepiest one in my opinion because they first total Blair Witch situation where you're walking around for circles. You're walking what you think is making progress towards a destination and you end up right back where you started. That's terrifying enough and frustrating. And also the someone like following you in the forest. Hell no.
Yeah, I thought for sure it was going to turn out to be her friends just being like, I'm lost, I was just following you.
And that's probably what they thought too. I would have told myself that to keep myself calm
Yeah.
because it would have been far more terrifying if it wasn't.
What do you think that black cloud was?
I was kind of thinking of the third man syndrome, but instead they wanted to scare the crap out of a child, so they want to do something dumb like this again, where instead of just them guiding them politely, they're like, let's really cue it up. Let's make some dark clouds. Let's get some church bells. Let's make sure this kid never does anything like this again. And it probably worked. It
Yeah,
made
I
them go in
love
the right
that idea.
direction.
Mhm. Yeah, they were scaring them into the right direction. I love that.
What about you? What were you thinking?
I have no idea. I mean, I was just reading it and taking it in at the same time, and I was scared for their lives. Like, that was scary.
Just being, even without anything supernatural paranormal happening, being lost in the forest or any remote area without like the proper resources, even with proper resources, if I'm not wanting to be there, I'd still be spooked.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely very, very creepy.
Have you ever been lost in the woods?
Only very mildly. And I feel like it was with Cody and it was fine. It wasn't too bad. I would say the most scared I was in the woods was, and this was probably them trying to freak me out, but one year I had to, for like a sociology class, we had to do a presentation on a subculture, and I chose hunting subculture. And so they had to like immerse yourselves in the experience or whatever shit. So I had to go hunting with Cody and his dad, and we were out in the woods all freaking day. I'm up in a tree stand. By the way, we were supposed to have like a seatbelt or something holding us in, but Cody forgot to bring it. So I was just like 20 feet up high. If I fell, I was just going to fall to my death. It's okay. I tried to stay awake the whole time, but I couldn't. It was super boring because you can't talk or do anything. No deers were killed that day, which I mean, I was kind of thankful because I probably would have been a little traumatized. A deer did come, and I feel bad. Um, but not because I didn't want the deer to die. But Cody had actually fallen asleep. So the deer came up, and I know they say you're not supposed to make eye contact with the deer, but Cody was sleeping. So I was staring that deer down like, bro, you gotta
Yeah.
leave. You're about to die. Like, leave. Like, can you see me? I know I'm covered in camera right now, but I was staring dead at that deer. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. We stay a little too late, and like his dad rounds us up, whatever. We're starting to head out, and there was like some confusion about the way, or maybe there wasn't. But there was a pack of coyotes howling, and I grew up in, like, city, very urban, and it sounded very close, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, those are the closest those coyotes ever sounded." And they acted nervous, so it made me nervous, but in retrospect, I don't think that's anything to be nervous about, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it is scary. It's a scary sound,
Because 'Cause I'd
and you
never
know that there's,
experienced
like, a
that.
pack of them. Yeah,
Yeah, they
it's
were
scary.
so close.
But they'll usually not bother you at all.
Right, but me at the time, I had no idea, so I was scared. What about you? Have you ever gotten lost?
Only one time, very briefly, and it's a classic, like, don't do this kind of story. The quick story is basically I met this dude in college. I was like a sophomore in college. And he's like, "Hey, do you want to go on like a hike with me?" I
Oh
was
my
like,
god.
"Sure." So I got in this guy's car. We went to a state park and we went on a hike. I know, so
This wasn't
sketchy.
your first time knowing him, right? Or meeting him? Or was it? Was
It
this
was
your
my
first?
second time meeting him. Kids don't do this. But yeah, we went into the woods and he's like this oh my god, I've never retold this story before, but it just keeps getting worse. He's like, "Let's go off trail."
Stop!
So we
No red
did.
flags in your head?
No. Dude, no, I was
Grace.
oblivious. We went off trail and he's like, "I think we're lost." And I'm like, "Yeah, we are, but the road's this way. Follow me." And I got us out of there and we just like went back to his car and he took me back to my apartment. And then we never talked again. I mean, I could have died. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. He was expecting you not to be so, like, well-oriented, and he's like, "Well, crap, I can't kill her now."
Yeah. Honestly, like he was very nice. He probably just had no intention of being creepy, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's, like, really fucking creepy.
That is too scary.
Yeah, note to everyone out there, don't go into the woods with a random man you almost just met.
Very true. I thought this was gonna be a birding encounter where you're trying looking for a bird, and then all of a sudden you got off trail because I could see, like, something like that happening to someone, so
No. It was more just like, "Hey, this looks cool over here." My alarm bells were not ringing. They were non-existent.
hey, you got out of there, and that's what's most important.
I just remembered a different detail, like another detail.
Oh gosh, what else?
It gets worse. Is that, like, I was in school, right? Like, I'm in college. This guy drove, like, 3 hours to, like, come visit me.
That makes it 800 times worse.
Oh
How
my
did you leave that
god.
out?
I can't believe I let this happen. I have to tell my daughter this story one day so that she doesn't make my mistakes. I
Yes, then
can't believe I survived this.
that's insane. Why did he drive that far? Was he also 45 years old? Is that the next thing you're gonna drop?
We were the same age, and we were, like
Okay.
we were talking, we were texting.
Okay. All right. That's fine. You survived. You're good.
Wow, why is
That's
my
really
heart
scary.
racing?
That was the scariest story you've told of all. And I think I like camping, but campgrounds are actually scarier to me than dispersed camping because there you don't have like a lock you can put on your door. If someone wants to hurt you, they can just cut through your little tarp, you know?
Yeah.
I think there's something kind of creepy about that. Maybe even less so like paranormal, but murder. That's never great.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Um, something that the reason why I kind of wanted to do this was one of our interns at work was telling us a story. They were talking about how they had a camping experience out in southern Indiana and they were camping. And I guess this area is known for like paranormal, supernatural stuff. They were camping and they heard this I'm gonna tell it so badly, but it was like the way she worded the sentence really like stuck with me. I was like, that's crazy. They heard this like howling, screeching sound, and it was sounding like an animal, but it was distinctly like it was like gut wrench, like horrifying. And she described it as distinctly a human trying to sound like animal. not an
Oh.
animal. Like, it was someone trying to sound like an animal. I'm like, that is disgusting. They called the cops. Cops didn't do anything. So they packed up their campsite and went and slept at a Walmart parking lot because they were so scared.
Yeah, I hate that too. Honestly, now I'm rethinking everything. Like, would I even, like, be scared for any of this stuff? Like, would I even think twice about it? I'm like, "Oh, yeah, there's, like, weird screaming, like, whatever,
Yeah,
it's
like,
not
I don't
fun."
know. I don't know.
'Cause
It's
I
fine.
also while you were telling that, I just remembered just one more detail. The reason why I stopped talking to this guy is because on that date, I realized that he didn't wear his seatbelt, and I was like, "That's a red flag."
You know what? That's valid, and I'm happy
Yeah.
that something in your brain popped off about that.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm like,
Um,
"You're not gonna put your seatbelt on?" He's like, "No, I never wear my seatbelt." I'm like, well, that
Safety
sucks for
first.
you."
Maybe it was
Ugh.
also your brain picking up all on the other subtle red flags, but the other stuff was more scary, so you had to resort to the seatbelt.
Yeah, you're right. It
That
was
is
a
too
coping
funny.
mechanism.
And he didn't have a white van, right?
No, it was some
Okay.
crappy car. Oh my god. I almost died. It's like
Well,
he
I'm
was
glad you
actually
survived.
behind me just, like, holding a knife the entire time, and every time I look around, he's, like, putting it away.
Oh my gosh.
He worked at a women's prison. Is that another red flag?
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's really funny.
Well, I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you've lived to tell the tale.
Which part of all of those stories was the scariest for you? And where would you land on the scare scale for that? With 1, completely safe, kinda silly. 5, it's a little scare, something that you could tell your friends, and it's kinda cool that you survived that, kinda like the story I just told. And 10 is the level where you simply just pack up and you just move, like you leave. You go to the Walmart parking lot to sleep the rest of the night.
I would have to pick this is a tough one. I would have to go with the Arizona camping story with the couple, keeping where she kept waking up at 3 in the morning. While nothing directly happened, I'd say that it's the dread building for me where you're just sitting there frozen in fear. Like, that's the worst part. I'd rather just the jump scare to happen than me just sitting there anticipating it happen, you know?
Mhm.
What about you? I guess I didn't do a scale. I mean, that'd be a 9 out of 10 and I'd leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't stop thinking about just, like, the black cloud. I'm like, "What is that even?" Yeah, that would be really scary if you saw just, like, a black cloud and you just felt just horrified because of it, and you're in the woods alone and you think someone's following you. That would probably scare me for the rest of my life.
That might be
Um,
the scariest one. 10 out of 10 for that one. Someone
yeah,
following you in the
exactly.
woods behind you and you're all alone, scared and lost anyway. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of Nature Obscura. If you have a scary forest camping summertime story, email us. You can email us at natureobscurapod@gmail.com.
Stay obscure, Earthlings.
Transmission ending.